All right, guys. Today we are going to be reacting to Andrew Wilson make these girls regret complaining about men. Let's jump in, y'all.
You think
Women
that looks...
are never going to have a trouble with men pursuing them. That's not a problem. That's
Right.
not an issue they have.
What is...
It's the men they want.
It is a problem. It is a problem for a lot of women.
The pool is a lot smaller nowadays.
Yeah, let's find out if it's a problem for a lot of women. If there was men right now, let's just say there was a man, random man in the room who was equal age with each one of you, and you guys opened up your DMs. How many DMs do you guys get compared to that man that say, "Hi, beautiful. Hello, gorgeous. Oh, girl, I saw you on such and such, and you were amazing. Oh my God, what's up, hottie?" How many of those do you guys get? Go ahead, raise your hand if you get those DMs. Come on, don't lie to me. Raise your hands if you get those DMs.
Exactly.
And let me tell you how many of those DMs I get. And I'm a fairly well-known, pretty famous at this point podcaster.
But you're married.
A couple.
I am too.
But even
Okay, but the guy's
single,
DMing.
She's married. She's married and gets them.
Oh,
She's
wait.
married and gets them. Other women are married and get them. What are you talking about? So the thing is, it's like very few. And I have many advantages, huge advantages other men don't have. So the thing is, it's like the pursuit is not an issue for women. That's insane, right? They get pursued endlessly. It's
correct.
Who's the right man, and the kind of pickiness factor and this and that.
I think that women, unfortunately, the older as society's gone on, we've gotten pickier, men have gotten pickier. I think that when you have countless people at your disposal with Tinder and Hinge and Instagram, you are less satisfied with the option that you're given. However, the DMs that I'm getting are very rarely a high caliber man that I would be open to going on a date with. I've saved myself. I don't expect him to save himself, but I expect him to have those same moral standings and beliefs that I do. And very rarely the guys in my DMs are that. And so, no, I'm not going to allow.
How old did you say you were?
I'm 22.
She's making the argument for Andrew. Yeah, that's the point. You receive so many of those kind of messages that even them sending those messages, you're not even attracted to those guys, but you still have those options.
Yeah, you're 22, right? So yeah, if you rigorously pursue finding a man who has the caliber of qualities that you're after, in this case, good foundational Christian ethics, and you have reasonable standards when it comes to things like income, height, and look, nobody's asking you to date somebody you're not attracted to. That's basically an impossibility for most people. Nobody's saying that you should do that. Though I do think attraction can grow over time between two people.
I agree.
But overall, I would say that if you keep your standards within the confines of reason, just remember that young men at your age, they have potential, right? You're looking for the potential for what they can do when they're in their 30s and 40s. Most men your age are going to be broke as shit. They're going to be broke, right? They're going to be fucking working a job that's somewhat menial, right? And it's after they engage in family that they grow into that role, by the way.
Correct.
Right.
So it's not fine, as long as he has the grounding foundational ethics that you're after, the Christian ethics, a lot of that stuff grows post-marriage and post-family. It's these standards are so high, though, for a lot of women, where they're like, oh, he's got to make $100,000 a year. And it's like at 23, he can make $100,000 a year at 23 or 24, 25. That's for men in their 30s.
What are your standards?
Mine?
What are you looking for in a guy?
I am looking for, number one, a guy who fears the Lord and loves the Lord with his whole heart. I think that a lot flows from that. I'm looking for a guy who's ambitious and has goals and is a doer, and he says what he's going to do.
Look at Christian girl here with the red. She has her hands crossed. That means that she's not liking or receiving anything that Andrew's saying. She don't even want to hear it.
I think that there's a lot of, I would love to follow after a man that his word means something and I see it in action. And I think that honestly a lot flows from both of those. I think that a character in a guy, if he really is honoring the Lord and wants to honor the Lord in all that he's doing, I would respect the heck out of him. I would submit to him for sure. But it's very rare that I come across men like that I really respect.
Are there any things looks-wise, like he's got to be?
Yeah, like I've got to be attracted to him, but I
This
think
tall.
that changes.
Okay.
I think that totally
Sure.
changes. I also think that that's so fleeting. Oh my gosh. Like, I mean, if I'm going to choose dating a guy who's 6 foot over maybe his character, I think that that's incredibly stupid and I'm probably not ready for marriage. So, I mean, it's like, I think that I'd much rather choose man's character over the way he looks when I'm approaching trouble with our kids, when I'm approaching trouble in our finances and the things that we're going to experience on this earth. And his 6 foot, brown hair, blue eyed look is really not going to hold up when we're under the weight of the world. And so I'm going to marry character over that any day of the week. But I also think it's tough because you do need to be attracted. God wants us to be attracted to our partners.
Sure.
Like it's going to be hard to have a nice sex life when you're, like,
You know
"Oof,
what
I
it
don't
says?
know if
She's
I
again
look like
hard to
you."
reproduce.
to our partner, not to our man. You see, God wants us to be attracted to our man. See, this is not yo. Paying attention to language is so important because that in itself it can determine the reality, right? If you tell yourself you're stupid every day, you end up being stupid. It's the same thing here. Partner is just minimizing, right, or diminishing the role of the man. You don't notice, but it is.
With people
Yeah,
who don't have sex.
totally.
I get it.
They can feel it
Listen,
too.
That
They
makes
know.
sense, right? It makes sense. It's hard to reproduce with people you don't want to have sex with.
Totally.
Attraction is a fundamental part of relationship dynamics. I'm
You
not
have to keep
disputing
yourself
that that's
nice
the
and,
case. But here's the thing, right? If it is the case that a lot of women, if they want to have those resources for families when they're younger, it used to be very commonplace for women who are in their 20s, early 20s, to marry men who are in their 30s. Men in their 30s, still very attractive, then end up having a lot more resources, things like this. But what's happened as a modern phenomenon is women get really upset about the idea of age gaps. They get super pissed about it. It's because they
we're
don't
not-
want the
I'm not scared.
competition.
I'm,
Yeah, but it's
That's
because
not
they
a
don't want
problem.
the competition.
I was
They
always
get-
chasing
they
the
get
age
upset
gap
about
when
it.
I was younger, so I understand.
They get upset about it because it's competition for them within their age tier.
Yeah.
Right? There's always a younger, more beautiful woman. So they get
And that's
mad
why
about
the
that shit,
oldest
right?
one, they always say, "What? Nah, I don't agree with that," because it seems like predatory. The thing is, it's just a projection because usually the older women, when they get a young guy, it's predatory. They're getting with that guy because of resources. There's a way to be predatory with that guy. That's what it is. And we've seen it multiple times where famous basketball players, right, they get hook-winged, right, bamboozled by these good-looking 32, 33 years old females.
But one thing you could do inside of the tier, if you're looking for that now and you think that men in their 20s are just playboys, look for men in their 30s who are more grounded and established.
Correct.
Those guys probably will do a lot more taking care of
Correct.
you, much more ready to settle down. And, here's the thing. This may be shocking, but as it turns out, men in their 30s really, really like to have sex with young, hot women. Isn't that crazy, right? And they also
Yep.
enjoy marrying them. So it's like, it's not crazy
Joe,
for
look at
women to
her,
be
though.
seeking outside
Look
of that
at her,
age bracket.
guys.
Okay. We have a
He's
couple
not having
chats
it.
we need to get to. We
not
have.
having it,
You
guys.
missed her. She was asking a question.
Oh, sorry.
My
Go ahead.
one concern with the age gap, and I know this is weird, but simply put, I don't want a man who's been promiscuous in the past, and I feel like that happens a lot with the age gap. And I also don't want a man that's going to die a lot sooner than me, because when I'm 80, I need someone to still protect me.
Yeah, but the age gap argument, nobody is saying you
That's what your
need
sons
to.
are for. That's what you have sons for. So the thing is like, and by the way, again, the church has looked at this problem every which way. When I say the church, I mean the Orthodox Church. Here's the truth. The truth is that you're making what's called deferment. It is true that those men may die before you die, right? Perhaps even 20 years before. But you have sons. Your sons are going to protect you. By the way, the old
Your
saying goes,
grandsons.
even bad men love their mamas. That means that even if it is the case that you raise hooligan sons, even they, you know what I mean, ain't going to let nothing happen to mama. That's the
You
way
can't-
that works.
you can't
The
count on
second-
having
the
sons,
second
though.
thing- no, what's that?
You can't count on having sons, though. Like,
You
that's
still
not,
have
like,
daughters.
that's not a guarantee.
Yeah, if you're a person who plans on having 5, 6 children, right? You get started young. I think that you being able to count on having a son or two is pretty high. It's significantly high. But let's just say that you don't. You still have brothers. You still have cousins. You still have other members of family.
Yeah.
Those people will also step in for that
Yeah,
protective
look at
role
her,
if your husband
making
dies early.
excuses, bro.
Also, matrons in society have less to fear in
She's
that
making excuses because the clock is ticking, guys. That's why. The clock is ticking.
regard. If your daughters, for instance, are married, now you have
Look at that.
sons-in-law.
She's like this.
They're also going to help out mother-in-law, right? The idea here is that you're creating a grounded foundation for family. That's the whole point. And so it's like, it seems absurd to me, because the other thing is you can defer resources. So you can make the argument he'll be a father for less time. But by the time kids are 18, you've spent 90% of all the time you're ever going to spend with them. 90% of the time. So if that's the case, then that means you're just deferring resources and saying, well, they could also give
She's not liking this, guy. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Pay attention to this, guys.
By the time kids are 18, you've spent 90% of all the time you're ever going to spend with them.
Look at that.
90% of the time. So if that's the case,
Look
then
at
that means you're just deferring resources and saying, well, they could also.
And this is how you destroy feminism. Andrew is touching in the most animalistic area when it comes down to mating strategy, which is being a mom. Even though she's supposed to be a Christian, pro-life, all that stuff, in her convenience, but not what really matters, which is just having a family. She's a pro-choice herself, but she's not having her own. You see what I'm saying? At some point, guys, at some point, we have to walk the talk. She's failing at this.
Way better life within the confines of those 18 years.
Can you address the promiscuity thing I said, though? Because I do not want a man who is promiscuous.
Yeah, men shouldn't be promiscuous. Yeah, that's true. But here's the thing. I'm just going to be blunt with you.
Women are
Most women care far less about former male promiscuity than men care about women's.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
There's and here's the reason for that. The reason for that is based around knowing who your offspring is. So for women, the virtue of chastity, and the reason it's so ingrained in men, is because before there was paternity tests, which are a recent advent, we needed to know who was having our children, right? If they were sleeping with multiple men, you didn't know if it was your child or not. And so that's why we're hardwired against it. We loathe it. We think it's gross. The whole 9 yards. However, the phenomenon is the opposite. Oftentimes, women, if a man is a virgin in their 30s, will think he's weird or sick or has a problem or he's a red flag, because why won't women sleep with him if he's in his 30s and is staying a virgin? There's actually incentives in society for men to sleep with women that aren't there in reverse, except for the peer pressure of women. So I think it's actually I wouldn't look. This is just my opinion, but I wouldn't look at the virtue of the man having slept with I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 former women even. I think that that's going to ultimately be less important in that dynamic than in the opposition. I know that sounds counterintuitive.
No, I agree.
How you think about it, though.
It is the reason she's trying to be virtuous, which I understand, but you cannot lie to attraction, right? You cannot lie to your own attraction. Females tend to be more attracted to men that have more experience. Now, I'm not saying you should be sleeping around, right? You can become a guy that could, project certain energy. However, we cannot put to the side the reality that is that females are more likely to be attracted to men that usually sleep around. That's what it is. That's what it is. Because that means if they sleep around, that means that his gene, something in his gene it is important that a lot of females are willing to just even take the chance. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you next one.